Welcome to Origination Overload. So today I got a question by Martial Law asking me, what do you find are the advantages of using Reason over other software? So that's a good question. I think the grass is not always greener on the other side, meaning sometimes you think things are better elsewhere until you get there and realize it's also problematic. Um, Naturally, every software has its advantages and disadvantages, but before I try and talk you out of trying new software, I want to quickly tell you why I think you should try new software, which is that using different software packages makes you think about writing music in different ways. It forces you to look at the way you produce music, and I think that does very interesting things to your head because you don't look at songwriting the same anymore. But what I think is even more important than the software is probably these three things, which is number one, training your ear. This probably takes the longest thing on your music journey, and the best way to get to that point, I realize I can't spell properly. The best way to get there is by writing a load of songs and listening to your songs on different sound systems and different environments, and you'll start to see where you're going wrong in your mixing. Not just that, but learning synthesizers and sound production, high pass filters, low pass filters, and knowing what decay and release and sustain, and knowing the difference between a square wave and a sawtooth, and getting to that point where if you've got a sound in your head that you want, you know how to produce that. I think that goes a lot further in the end. So that's something to consider. That, which leads directly into the second point, treating your room. And I don't mean with chocolates and flowers, I mean with soundproofing. Another alternative to that is buying some semi-open headphones so you can produce music for hours without fatiguing your ears too much. If you're interested, these are the ones I use. And the third point, understanding music, improving your songwriting skills, understanding chords and keys and scales, and those kinds of things will also, I think, in the long run, take you a lot further with your music making than the software package you use. So as someone who did photography for many years, many people would ask me, what camera do I use? My answer would always be, it's not about the camera, it's about your eye. And it's the same thing with music production software, is that it's not about the tools you use, but it's about your ear and how you use your ear and understanding contrast and frequencies and sound. There's also another thing people speak a lot about, which is analog versus digital. And back in the day, a lot of people would say that analog was better, and maybe that was the case, but not anymore. Digital is just as good or even better than analog. And as someone who's bought, I don't know, 7, 8 different pieces of analog gear and synthesizers and drum machines and stuff, I would say don't do it, because it's just one of these rabbit holes. If you've ever played games and you buy yourself a lot of games and you find you don't end up playing half of the games, it's kind of like that. With analog gear, not only is it super expensive, but you need the space for your gear to live and for it to always be connected. And I find generally I'm just not interested in having to like wire stuff and plug things in and switch them on. It kind of gets in the way of me just wanting to hop on and be fluid and quickly write something, gets a musical idea down. So if you haven't started your analog journey, don't do it. Don't do it. So now that we got that out of the way, let's just quickly talk about the difference between Fruity Loops, Ableton, and Reason. I used Fruity Loops, also known as FL Studio, for probably about 8 years, and I used to love it. I especially loved the step view because you would see a collection of sequences in one screen, and then you would go to the next pattern, and it was completely blank. So you had two options there. You could copy and paste your patterns from previously into the next sequence, or you could write something completely new. So it kind of had a linear, straight direction to it. And I think that was an interesting way to write music because you get to see everything together and how you've programmed stuff. Fruity Loops has changed since I've last used it, so I'm not too sure on the new stuff. Let's also talk about Ableton. I really love Ableton because if you're into mixing a set together or have a bunch of songs or want to DJ, Ableton is great for that. Not only that, but also the way you can quickly try different ideas out together and see if they gel. I'm not going to get into it, but just to quickly explain. So you have, for example, an instrument, and you would have different ideas underneath that instrument, different patterns that you've made. You'd have another sound with different ideas, and you can mix and match them together. So I find that very interesting. I can quickly try different ideas, and for a live setup, Ableton, no question. Why I like Reason is, oh, you see, I'm biased. I've already made the R big. Why I love Reason is that, well, I guess firstly what attracted to me is that I'm a visual person. I always found Cubase too boring to look at. Reason was kind of interesting because you saw the different pieces of gear. But what really got me was that it was very fast to get ideas down. And I think for me, that's the most important thing, because when I'm writing music, I don't want to spend too much time trying to find things and look for ways to make things work, where I can just very quickly push a few buttons and then I got something down there. And it really helps with the state of flow and getting ideas out there. As the Reasons evolved, they started to get some nice other interesting parts of the program where you're able to help you with your weaknesses. You know, some of the parts of the program can help you generate bass lines or generate drum beats or generate chord progressions. So I think that also really helps if you're not a well-rounded musician, that you can quickly get help and ideas for your track. And that's why I like Reason. So to end it off, I do think you should try a different software package, but if you're going to spend money on it, then probably not. Then maybe instead buy a pair of good headphones or treat your room, or maybe take a songwriting course or something like that. But if you've done all that shit, then definitely try out a new software package. But understand that it's going to take time. It takes time to learn these softwares, and that can sometimes be a little annoying or irritating. But I think in the end it pays off because, again, like I said when I started the video, is that it helps you think of music in different ways, and that can really benefit your music making in the end. So cool. Thanks for watching, and I'll check you later.